Hand loaders, bullet casters, welcome back to my bench. Today, folks, we're going to discuss a product from a company that I really like called NOE. They manufacture and sell quite an elaborate variety of great bullet molds. They also have some other really great tools that we as hand loaders can really appreciate. Being able to seat a bullet straight into the case is of the utmost importance. Have you ever had a bullet seat crooked and the case bulge? Perhaps that was a jacketed bullet, but what if you were using a cast bullet? Have you ever seated one of these and saw how, wow, some of the lead just seems to shave right off? And maybe you've wondered if that's just kind of a normal characteristic of loading with cast. No, that's not quite the case, folks. What we need to make sure of is to get a good proper bullet seat. Not only do the cases need to be sized accordingly, we also need to have a proper expansion for the type of bullet we're using. Now, all of the mainstream reloading companies make great tools for expanding your cases. So right here, we've got from the left, we have the Lee powder through expander die. We have, again, Lee with their universal expanding die. And to the right, we have an RCBS expanding die. Now, in order for us to understand where NOE kind of falls into this whole different arena of expander options, why don't we take a moment to kind of dissect these dies down and see exactly how they work. We'll just unscrew this powder through cap. What makes this an expanding die is the plug that's used on the inside. This and only this is the main function of the die. This part makes the die what it is. If we look at this section first, we'll see this section seats into the case. The tool's actual diameter is 0.428. This is just fine, folks, because the majority of our bullets that are used are going to be jacketed bullets that are sized to 0.429. And that should ensure, folks, that there should be a real good friction lock fit between the bullet and the case. So as we travel up this expander plug, we'll see there's actually a bit of a flare. This flare can potentially reach 0.442, which will be plenty sufficient to allow for a 0.429 or 0.430 bullet to seat. So let us take a look at the next offering. This is the Lee Universal expander die, and it's a little bit of a different animal. We've got two plugs, two expander plugs. However, I use the word expander quite loosely. As you can see, these are cone-shaped. However, what these will do is allow for a flare of the case mouth. For example, if I just seat this guy in there, we'll open up that case mouth, sort of flare it out. Of course, you only want to do just enough to allow for the bullet to seat. It's still an extremely useful die for cases that are already properly sized and matched for your bullet. However, we have this RCBS die. Its expander plug is built into the entire shaft. We'll take a close-up look because this is where we start to resemble the NOE product that I'll be displaying here soon. So very similar to the first Lee expander die that we looked at, we do have this shaft, and this shank is going to match factory size bullet. So this coming in, this shaft is sized to a 0.428, which will more than accommodate a bullet for 44 Magnum or Special. Once we climb up this shaft, we sort of reach this gentle step. It's very hard to see with the naked eye. However, this step actually allows for that flared section to begin. Let's measure out that step. That gives us a 0.432. All three of these dies are great dies. However, these dies have an incredibly inconvenient limitation. This is where one of my absolute favorite companies comes into play. So folks, up until now, the types of bullets that we've referenced have all been factory style bullets. For example, a jacketed 44 caliber bullet here with a diameter of 0.429. Or we have a cast bullet with a size of 0.429 to 430. Yeah, we'll call it 0.430. This is all a very common size for our cast and our jacketed. However, what if we have reason to work outside of those norms? For example, we might find ourselves in need of a slightly larger bullet, something that's a custom size for maybe it's a difficult firearm to load for. Maybe it has awkward chamber tolerances or awkward throat tolerances. So can we still use our factory options? Well, I guess we could. However, these are the problems we might run into. Recall the Lee powder through expander die. Well, it had a sized plug for 0.428. That's 4 thousandths below bullet diameter. So we really start to kind of have a problem with getting a proper seating. We could probably try to get a better seat out of this if we expanded the case mouth further. However, we really risk bulging things out or weakening the case mouth, which is not a good situation, especially for a high pressure cartridge like this. So now we go to our universal expander die, which really and truly, for this particular bullet, hasn't given us too much of a better operation. In fact, we still kind of have that bobblehead function going on here. The bullet really does not want to seat into this case. And forcing it would likely only swage down the bullet diameter and possibly weaken the brass. So now we go to our RCBS expander die. It probably did a little bit better, and I might get some decent use out of this. However, this is about as deep as it'll go just by pushing it in, which may work. I am afraid that because it won't go past this ridge into the lube groove, by seating it by hand manually, we might end up scraping off some lube or even scraping off a little lead on some of these. This is where the NOE expander plug really begins to shine. Take a look at this, folks. It's in there, it's seated, it doesn't want to give it up either. All we got to do is just by hand give it a nice little seat and it's already ready to go. There's no stressing of the case mouth, and what we can know and expect is it'll simply seat without shaving, bulging, or removing bullet lube. And that is thanks to NOE's custom expander plug. So let's take a moment to examine this NOE. Notice we have the exact same style of expander shaft right here as that RCBS expander die had. We also have a similar step. It's probably a little bit more gentle than the RCBS version. Now, there's two very specific areas that you'll find great benefit in these NOE expander plugs. NOE understands that not all chambers and throats of a given caliber are going to be the exact same tolerance. So NOE has made several different size options for each caliber. So you may be wanting to know, okay, well, there certainly has to be a die body. NOE has kept that very simple also. All we need to do, my friends, is just unscrew our Lee universal die, and we can now drop in our NOE expander plug. So essentially, with one die body, you can have as many different NOE plugs as you like. Or perhaps you already have a die like this and just don't much feel like purchasing a whole separate die. Well, that's even better, folks. All you have to do is take out the Lee powder through expander plug and drop in your NOE expander plug. So essentially, you're not purchasing a die, you're only purchasing a plug. And if you have Lee products, you're already set up to use those plugs. So it's been a little while since I looked at the cost of these plugs. However, I believe they're still under $8 a piece, which, as you can tell, I've gotten a little bit carried away over the years. I may not always know exactly which size is going to be best, so I might just purchase one or two extras just to see. And the last time I talked to them over there at NOE, they would be happy to take back any that you've decided that you don't need, assuming they're not damaged. So folks, if you're interested in this product and you're just unsure about how to select the correct expander plug for your application, after all, NOE does give us some numbers to follow, and they might be a little bit confusing at first, but it's actually really simple. So just stick around. I'm going to show you in the next video exactly how to pick out the ones you might want to choose and try. So if you've enjoyed this video, I'm going to ask you to go straight to the NOE website, take a look at everything they have to offer, support American tool manufacturing, especially the mom and pop corporations who are working their best to keep their heads above water and service the American public. Folks, I'm going to ask you also to like and subscribe, and until then, LeadSmith out.